Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about how Trump's new tariff war is going to affect China and the US, and also is there any possibility of such kind of tariff over Indian exports, and what is the steps the government of India has taken in the recent time related to such policy of the US administration. But to give you the brief background of this particular topic, the President Donald Trump has decided to impose new additional tariff on imports from China. This tariff will be in the amount of about 10%. Apart from that, he already has imposed 25% of tariff on many export coming from the neighbors such as Canada and the Colombia as well as Mexico. Now, this poses a dilemma for the leaders of China or Beijing's leaders because they are not sure whether it is better to ignore the new tariff or retaliate by imposing tariff on the American export to China as well. Now here Chinese extensive domestic propaganda apparatus is also something that they have to take into account, because even domestically we talk about among the Chinese population, the Chinese government has made its image of the country as a rising economic power, and at the same time they have continuously talked about United States and portrayed it as a country which is suffering inexorable decline, either in the terms of geopolitics or in the terms of military capacity or in terms of the economy as such. But overall, what we can say is that the vigorous retaliation, if Chinese government indeed goes ahead with, will risk starting a global trade war that could damage China more than the United States, because you know that the Chinese economy to a large extent in today's world is heavily dependent upon the export, because the domestic demand in China has significantly declined, at least if you compare it from the last decade. So that is why any step taken by China has to be very carefully crafted one. Also, we can understand this by looking at the trade relation between US and China. We look at the US and China trade. The US exports much more smaller volume and value as compared to the Chinese export to the United States, and that is why overall, if talk about the China, it runs a trade surplus with United States, and a trade surplus not of a small magnitude but of a very high magnitude, that is around 1.48 billion dollars. So such a huge amount, 148 billion dollars. So such a huge amount of trade surplus is something that China cannot ignore, because significantly its economy will be impacted if it takes any retaliatory measure, and that is what US understand as well, and that is why they might have put a tariff. Now, the initial response of China has been a kind of cautious nature, as we have discussed, because their economy is heavily entangled with the American economy. But Ministry of Commerce of China has said that it would not retaliate as of now, but would challenge the decisions of the United States to the World Trade Organization, that largely is an international organization which ensures fair trade between the member countries. And WTO has an investigative panel, so investigative panel then try to put pressure, try to embarrass United States, that because its decision violates the international free trade rule. So this is something that China expects that it might help, but again, it's practically, if you try to understand, WTO has lost most of its influence and power since 2019, because both during the Trump presidency as well as during the Biden administration, what we have seen is that they have blocked the appointment of the judges who are needed to authorize countries to take countermeasures in case of unfair trade being practiced. So the impact and influence of WTO on the US in general, and more specifically on the Trump administration, is something that will be very limited and will not yield the desired result at China wants. So if you look at the tariff, as I told you, the 10% tariff, extra tariff apart from earlier what tariff rate was, has been imposed on the goods imported from China, 25% from the Mexico and Canada. And also, not only Trump has put or pushed this tariff, he also has given a warning to these countries that if any country retaliates by putting a tariff on the American export, then US will again escalate the percentage of tariff. So that is also something that China is considering. Now, Chinese Commerce Ministry has said that we will also, apart from going to WTO, will put countermeasures to firmly safeguard our rights and interest. China, for example, earlier has put export control on gradually lengthening list of the materials and technology which is not allowed to be exported either to the US or its members or its, what you can say, allied countries. China halted the export to United States, for example, of critical minerals in the December last year of antimony, gallium, which are largely used for manufacturing of the semiconductor industry. Before that also, for the first time, as a retaliatory measure taken by China, once US administration under Joe Biden presidency has restricted certain items to be exported to China, China also for the first time officially banned even other countries that are buying mineral from China to be re-exporting them to the United States. So indirect export to US from China is also something that China for the first time has halted. Now, this is something that goes against the overall dictums and the policy of the Chinese government, because traditionally Chinese government has firmly believed in such kind of ban over the re-export should not be exercised. As per China, these are unfair form of long arm jurisdiction that interferes with the international commerce. But this is a counter major reaction that we have seen during the Biden's presidency from China. So maybe similar kind of reaction we can see in this term of the term of the Trump as well. Now, a strong reaction from China poses two big risks. Like, why China have not taken a counter measures, or why it has not put a counter duty, counter tariff duty? So, reason is because if it further put many of the items in the export control list, it will prompt multinational companies that are operating in China. For example, Tesla, if you talk about Apple manufacturing facilities in China, they might not invest anymore in China and put their new factories in the other countries. That will lead to the loss of revenue for the China. Not only that, second also, another risk is that any such kind of extra curve by the China could trigger a further response from Trump, and that could cripple the Chinese economy. Now, if you try to compare the Trump's first term and the second term, in the Trump's first term, similar kind of measures were taken by the Trump as well, and that time we have seen an upward spiral in the trade restrictions. Now there are penalties on the American export as a retaliatory measure, but as Trump imposed further round of tariff, Beijing quickly ran out of the American export target, because just few minutes back I have told you that America's export to China is much more lesser than the Chinese export to America, and that is why America has this luxury, has this opportunity to tax and tariff higher number of goods, different type of diverse goods, which China does not have. Now, China and Trump administration agreed to stop the escalation in January 2020, but left in place most of the tariffs that had been imposed. And the Trump 2.0 is what we are seeing. From the same place, we have seen a further escalatory measures. Now, if you look at the reaction of India that has come, we can see in the budget statement itself, in the budget speech, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has significantly slashed custom duties on several items which India imports from the US. These are high-end motorcycle from the brands such as Harley Davidson. We have the imported cars, or we talk about the smartphone part. So obviously the slashing of custom duties on these items will send a strong signal to the United States, and it will also give a boost to the American companies like Harley Davidson, Tesla, and the Apple. The tariff rate, to talk about the luxury cars, including the station wagons and race cars, which are priced above $40,000, has been slashed to 70% from 125% levied earlier. Why it is so? Also, in the earlier speeches, even before taking the oath of presidency, Trump has termed India as tariff king. That means he has said that India is the country which imposes the highest amount of tariff as compared to other developing economies in the world. So maybe this cut in the custom duty is a signal to the Trump, a signal that is trying to basically woo him. Now, if you talk about the other announcement that has been made is in the sector of lithium ion batteries, where basic custom duties over the lithium ion batteries that is largely used for electric vehicles and all have been totally scrapped. Now, this move could further increase or enhance the interest of the American companies like Tesla, which has been greatly eyeing the vast and emerging Indian electric vehicle market. And here also in the last year, April 2024, Elon Musk, who is the CEO of Tesla, he had planned to visit India, but at the last moment, the plan was largely, he was not able to visit India because he said that there is some heavy obligations he has at that time. And rather than making visit to India, then he has visited to China. So maybe such kind of decision will further change his mind, and he might be able to come and invest heavily in the electric vehicle segment in India. So also geopolitically, it is very important, because we know that Prime Minister Modi is going to visit United States in February to have a meeting with the President Donald Trump. So it will send a strong signal to the American administration that India is willing to negotiate, India is willing to do whatever is required to have a better relation with United States. So it also at the same time will try to seek an assurance that US will not raise taxes or impose additional trade barrier against Indian product. And that is something which is a positive as of now, because Trump already has imposed tariffs on China, Colombia, Canada, Mexico. So in the first round of the tariff war, we can say, unleashed by Donald Trump, India is nowhere to be seen. So that is something that we can consider as a positive signal from India's perspective. Now, Trump's speech have also largely been we can say circulating around America first trade policy. That is the interest of America. He want to keep at the first, and then only he want to have a kind of transactional relation with other countries. Second, India as a tariff king, I told you that what he has termed about. And third, also, since India is a member of BRICS bloc, he has clearly said that if any of the member countries of BRICS try to remove dollar from the as a strongest currency or the currency in which global trade largely occurs, in that case also he will impose 100% tariff. So he want to maintain the dollar's hegemony, not want dollar to be influenced by any alternative currency, because the BRICS currency was very much making a news headline few months and years back. Now, if we talk about the significance of this entire decision, both by the US, by the China, or the India, we can understand also that India's decision is prudent, because if India is able to not face any extra additional tariff from the United States, it will have an advantage to take. It will have the opportunity to take advantage of the US-China trade war, because you know that as the Chinese products become costlier in the US because of the tariff imposed, Indian products, similar products, will become cheaper, and thus it can boost the overall demand of the Indian products in the American market, thus boosting the Indian export, thus giving an extra flip to the domestic GDP growth rate of the India as such. Now, Trump tariffs are becoming global trade disruptors, leaving the market uneasy. That obviously we have seen that continuously both the global markets as well as Indian market, even the we can say the cryptocurrency market, have seen and taken these signals as negative in nature, and that is why we are seeing a permanent continuous decline. And with import tax cut, India would be able to deal better with an otherwise unpredictable year as such. So what Donald Trump is going to do, we'll still have to wait and watch, and we still have to see that how the discussion, the bilateral talk between the Prime Minister Modi and Trump happens in this particular month, and what is the outcome. But that is all for this particular video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with your fellow aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thank you.